Today we have two guests. One is the visionary behind the company's growth, and the other is the integrator who turns that vision into systems, hiring, and structure.
My goal is to help the people I work with get what they want out of working with me.
But what makes this story interesting isn't just the growth, it's how quickly the company scaled from 15 to 70 team members in 1 year.
With fear, it's very hard to have faith, and faith is a practice every single day.
In this episode, we'll talk about what happens to culture when a company grows this fast, how hiring shapes the future of a team, and how leaders protect culture when they cannot be close to every single individual. Brandon and Israel, welcome to the Agency Culture Conversations.
Wow. Wesley, that was a crazy intro. And I'm flattered, but I have to be honest. I'm not a visionary. I am just a guy who just is determined to deliver a quality service, and then it just kind of step by step became what it is today. So that was flattering. Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Well, you are too kind and humble. For everybody who are listening, would you guys might give us a bit of introductions on who you are, a bit about the company as well?
Sure, yeah, of course. So my name is Brandon Scott. I'm one of the co-founders here at CarbonBox Media. We are a digital marketing agency. We specialize in paid traffic, email marketing, SEO, CRO, blogging, content, a lot of stuff. We're damn near full stack. We've been doing it for 5 years. In that 5 years time, it's grown a lot. And, a lot of, like you mentioned, a lot of people growth. We started with me, our co-founder, Jordan White, and then one employee. And then here we are 5 years later with 70 employees. So pretty insane.
Yeah, it is. 70 in 1 year. Israel, when did you come into the picture? I'm curious.
Yeah, so not too long ago, I'd say about almost 2 years now. And I actually came on in the meta division. So that was a huge learning experience for me because my background, my name is Israel Alarkin. I'm currently the COO of CBM, and my background didn't initially start in marketing. I actually studied finance and was very much into working with entrepreneurs, founders in my career. Started off in the crypto VC industry and stayed there for a few years and transitioned to another entrepreneurial venture in completely different industry, in the cacao industry. And then from there, I was given the opportunity to come on board CarbonBox Media, which is a testament. I mean, Brandon is very humble, but it's a testament as to the cultural foundation that both Brandon and Jordan, the both co-founders, really integrated within CBM at a very early stage, which is that entrepreneurial spirit. And you can see that from everyone on the team. It's a very transparent team culture, and I know we'll get into it, Wesley, in more detail in the call.
Yeah.
But I do want to highlight that because it really helped us attract top talent to the point where we're at from when I joined. It's a completely different culture than now at 70. So yeah.
I love that. I'm really excited about this episode because we actually get to see from two different perspectives. And Brandon, I was curious. I actually learned before the recording that you used to play football. Was that in college? Was it in high school?
Yeah, so I've played I played football since I was 9 years old. Played in high school and then played in college. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
I played at a University of Nevada. Great experience, and I do miss football. I miss parts of football. I miss like the camaraderie and catching footballs, but I did not miss getting hit at all. I'm really happy that part's over.
Yeah, a lot of founders actually play some kind of sport when they were in either university or in high school. So I was curious for the experience for your experience. When you play football for all these years in sport, of course, like having the wrong teammate actually affects everybody. But how does that experience shape the way that you build your agency today?
That's a really good point. And I would say for me personally, playing on team sports my entire life, I've been around like really good teams where there's really good culture. And I've been around teams where it's just not there and it's missing. And so I think I realized early on that like having the right people and the right mindsets throughout the team, that is so important. And I've seen like just bad mindsets or like bad apples just poison a whole team, and it's not good, man. It really, I've been a part of some teams that I think could have been like undefeated or won championships, but just couldn't get it together culturally. You know, it's not just the talent; it's culture's a huge piece of it, and definitely bring that to post sports, bring that into work and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know what? I want to dive right into the growth right away, if you don't mind. So you
Yeah.
guys went from 15 to 70, right? 70 as in 70 in a span of 1 year. So I'm sure things was very different from 1 or 2 employees to 15 to now 70. So for you, Brandon, as a founder, obviously small teams feel very exciting and personal, but as you grow the team, it carry more weight. So when did the responsibility start to feel real? When did it feel like, like I got everybody on my shoulder and I gotta make sure I take care of the rest of the team?
From the day one, the moment we had one employee, I felt that way. And that's because I feel like this is my mentality when I always come into, like when I hire somebody or like when I'm building a team, is my goal is to help the people I work with get what they want out of working with me. So some people, that's 2 years of experience, and then they'll move on to a next venture and I can be a nice recommendation for them. Other people, they want a 40-year career and they want to grow and they want to progress from being an account manager to a senior account manager to a COO, looking at Israel, and, and you hear people say that stuff, right? And then it's all great, but it's another thing when they actually show up and they do those things and you see those things over and over again. And it's like, you just reward winners. It's like, to me, it's really not delivering. The way you treat your team members is the same way you should treat your clients, is that in the sense that like, help them get what they want. And then in return, it's just going to come back to you. So that's kind of been my philosophy since day one. And it was manageable when I had like a personal relationship with everybody up until about like, 15 team members. But then when you start to scale, that changes. Like there's some team members on our team that I haven't personally had a one-on-one conversation with. And that's weird for me. That was weird for me at first, but I feel like as the company grew, we put the work in to bring the right people on, that shared the same values, to where like they're going to bring those same people on that share the same values. And we're trying to like maintain a strong culture that's not just built on me. It's built on, it's as much as my culture as it is Israel's culture, as it is everyone else's culture. And it just comes from having like a same perspective and mindset.
And Israel, I assume you came into the picture when the company is growing too fast, and at some point Brandon was like, "Oh man, I gotta focus on maybe like growing the company. I need somebody who can take over the company culture." So I assume nowadays that is mainly your day-to-day responsibility, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I came in the role back in last June, and I quickly walked into the role specifically to put in the next layer of foundations and processes and systems so that we can standardize delivery to the client. So when we build out a hiring pipeline, it can be so that when we bring people on board, they know exactly what to do and how to deliver a quality service to clients. And there's really no disruption to that scale. But one thing that I really, really admire about Brandon here is when you're building a team, you want to give them the tools so that they can be the best that they can be. And it's not only giving the tools, but also giving them the opportunity, right, to show you that they can be more than the role that they're assigned at that given moment. And also having faith, right? Having faith in that person that they can grow beyond the role that they're assigned. And that's a testament to what a great leader is. I've seen this in previous startups that I've worked at, and one person that Brandon and Jordan remind me of is one of the COOs I used to work with that I personally admire so much. And every time some new candidate was brought on board to the team, he would actually sit down with them and really ask them detailed questions about what they wanted out of the role, right? The role didn't define them, right? And he knew that. He was very adamant about that. And he made it very clear that the role wouldn't define them. So he would give the person the opportunity to define themselves and use the role as a trajectory to something more or wherever they wanted to go, whether it was with the company or another company down the road, right? So that's leadership. That's leadership. It's having uh, having an awareness beyond just the immediate needs of the company and being aware of the needs, the human needs of the person that you're going to be working with. So I tell Brandon and Jordan this all the time, man. Like they really have set the foundations of a beautiful culture at CBM, and it's been a great place to work.
I like that. I like that. And then, if you don't mind me kind of deep diving into faith really quick, right? Now, that's everybody's dream, right? I want to hire somebody and they will take care of everything for me where I can just maybe kick back and relax and everything getting done, right? But that's not the reality of real work, right? So how do you balance faith and accountability within your team, right? I'm sure it was very different from having like 15 people or a small team to 70 now. Like, how do you have that faith with 70 people? Do you have any sort of system or anything that intentional, the way that you build your team culture?
Izzy, why don't you hit that one? I feel like you're way more English right now. Yeah.
You were definitely in the zone for that, Israel. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So, yeah, this is a really good question. You know, and we could get really philosophical with it, and I'll touch on it a little bit. But yeah, faith.
Yeah.
I really I really draw from my experience, as we all should. But I really draw my experience from working with past founders, and faith is a big component. And when I think about faith, the opposite of that, I would say, is ego. So when you have a founder that has a very large ego, an ego grows with the need to control. And the need to control comes from fear. So with fear, it's very hard to have faith. So and faith is a practice every single day, right? Faith is a practice. You know, there are moments where I am drawn to try to control every little aspect of the business, but realistically, long term, it's not a scalable business solution if we're looking at a practical point of view. It's just not. So you have to have faith in the people that you hire, right? In the mission that you put together and that you've communicated. And at the end of the day, it's the relationship, the personal relationship that you build with that person, right? Where you set clear expectations every single day and you give them the opportunity to meet their immediate needs, and you allow them to do what they were brought onto the team to do, which is execute better than you can for that role, right? So if you surround yourselves with A players that are smarter than you, then you have nothing to worry about, right? And there will always be problems. There will always be things that come up, and that's your job. That's my job to address them, you know, and I accept that as is. So it's a practice every single day for sure, but it's a good practice to have, and it's necessary when building a business.
Yeah, yeah. That's very interesting, actually. So I like the fact that you mentioned faith, and the opposite of that is fear. And I'm curious, I'm going to flip the script to you, Brandon. Growing the business so fast, was there any fear as you're scaling? Was there any, I guess there was a point in time when you're like, I just have to make this work, or else everybody who's on my shoulder, I feel like I'm letting them down.
There was never a point where I felt like if we don't make it work, we're going to let everyone down. I feel like we've been pretty good at like acquisition for the most part. The most important thing if you're running like an agency is getting book calls so you can close deals. And that really hasn't been a huge problem for us, at least not in like the last couple of years. So I never felt like that pressure, but like I do feel a pressure to just help people get what they want at the end of the day. And to me, that just means just like helping people provide for their families. You know, I want to, like Israel's saying, A players that are smarter than you. You know, we see that right here. Israel's smarter than me, you know? So how do I incentivize really intelligent people that are hard workers, that show up, that have pride in what they do and want to, you know, be here and work? That's that's all it is, man. But yeah, I never really thought about it like, oh, if I don't do, this thing or that thing, like it's all on my shoulders. I was just kind of moving forward in the sense to just like, show up every day, work every day. And that's the best you can do, man, is just literally show up every day.
Yeah, there you go. Just like what Israel just said, right? The faith is basically the opposite of fear, and I hear no fear in you. So that's why you have so much faith in the team in Israel. Now, one thing I'm interested in is, of course, there are people who joined the company earlier on. They had the opportunity to grow to a position like COO, like Israel here, right? But there are also folks who join maybe later on. And let's say the position has been already filled up. Like, how would you go about that? Whenever you have a conversation where somebody else in the team, like, hey, you know what? One day I want to take Israel's spot. I want to be a COO. Like, how do you make sure you build that path for them?
First of all, when we're hiring people, I want to hear people be ambitious and want my job or Israel's job, because if we have people that have that mindset, that's already the right kind of person, and a growth. We have an agency right here, right? But mine and Israel and our executive teams, our vision is so much bigger than just an agency. So if someone comes through the door and we identify somebody that wants to grow into a role like that, well, then it just circles back to exactly what Israel was saying earlier is, like use the opportunity they have in front of them to get their foot in the door. We can see if they're culturally a fit, assuming they're culturally a fit and they benefit the team, like they're just going to naturally grow. And some people just want to stay at that first level. Hey, I just want to make my money here. I want to get my bonuses, get whatever, and just rinse and repeat. That's fine. Other people do want to grow. It literally just comes down to asking good questions. It's not just about work. It's about life. I said this in the beginning and Israel's kind of echoed it. And we didn't talk about this beforehand. It's just, we're on the same page, is you ask people what they really want out of work. You want a house, you want to provide for your family, you want to grow and, have something more, so there's just, it's just really important. The bottom line is like, you got to really care about people, or that I think what will happen is like bad culture will creep into your business, and that's toxic. So people first, you got to really, really live that. And I think you'll attract good people in the end.
I like that. I like that. Now, I just want to actually follow up on that actually. What are some of the questions that you like to ask people during the interviews to understand whether or not they are a good culture fit for the team?
So one of the questions I specifically ask, and then Izzy, you can jump into, like, for example, I'm sure Izzy remembers this. I just like literally, I lay it on the table. I say, hey, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've been in your shoes. I've been interviewed and I've been the best faker there is. And I've told them about how, like, everything they've wanted to hear, I've told them, right? And I've gotten the job and been miserable, and hated it. I don't want people to feel that pressure to like be the person that I'm supposed to hire. I want them to be themselves. And I lay it on the table. I say, hey, I want you to know that I understand that this is a job. This is some people, I want you to get out of this job, whatever it is. If it's just simply a paycheck for a couple of years and you're going to bounce and go to a different company, that's totally fine. Just do a great job for me. I'll make sure you're taken care of and I'll write you a great recommendation. If it's, you want growth, you want to spec into new skills or learn different things, as long as you're here on the team, showing up and doing the right things, like we invest in our people. If they want courses, they can have courses. If they want better tools, they can have better tools. If they want to improve the service, we sit down, we talk about it, and we improve the service. That's like one of my biggest questions for me is like, what do you really want? And I feel like I genuinely can tell when people are and maybe this is my ego, but like I can generally tell, generally tell when people are like lying to me about what they really want, because sometimes it just like some things just don't come off genuine. And I just look for genuine answers for that question in particular. There's obviously like more technical questions that you could ask somebody about like the job itself. But yeah, I feel like people really show a lot when you invite them to share more about their lives and not just the position itself, or even just like, you ask certain questions, you see how people get excited about certain things. There's also like, even in small talk, you can kind of just feel people's energy, and you want good energy you want like obviously highly competent people, but you want people on the team that you want to like be around. And even if you're not working with them directly, you want the people that you're already have on your team, you want to bring in people that are positive. So continues a work environment. Cause I mean, I'm kind of rambling now, but like I've been in environments where there's like some people that are just so toxic and you don't want to be around them. So as being in the position where I have the ability to let people in the door, it's my job to be a good gatekeeper and not only just think about who I'm hiring, but how does this affect everyone else on the team? So
Yeah.
that was a bit of a lot. So sorry
Oh,
about
no,
that.
no, that's all good. You know what? You know what? One thing you say that I find really interesting is you'd be surprised to know how many young founders have that fear where I don't want to hire somebody. They come in, they would steal all my operations. They come in, they would steal all my sauce, my tea, and they would go out there, they start their own company. What would you have to say to that?
If somebody came into my company and said, hey, my goal in 3 years is to start my own agency, I'd say, great, I'm going to show you the ropes. You're going to run my agency for 3 years and then go start your own. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not that serious. You got to be careful with thinking about like a scarcity mindset. There's enough for everyone out there. And if you put out good, you're going to get good back. And if that person went off and started their own venture and they stole your clients, well, then the truth is you weren't that good to begin with. So you got to keep improving. And also too, like that person that wants to start their own agency in that 3 years, they may recognize how hard it is to start their own agency. And maybe they become a senior executive in your team and still have some, sort of like bigger incentives that whatever they may not even know truthfully what they want. So after that 3 years, they may stick on longer. Who knows? So.
I like that. I like that. So it's kind of like a two birds in one stone type deal. Like, hey, you want to run an agency? Why don't you run mine?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I like that mindset. Yeah, Israel, I'm curious. Do you have any other interview question that you typically like to ask candidates?
Yeah. So there aren't any any specific interview questions that I like to ask. I like to kind of get on a call and really get to know the person themselves and what are the motivating factors of them actually applying. I think that's very similar to what Brandon's approach is, right? Is we want to get to know the person first and not so much the qualifications and the skills. Of course, they're important, but what's more important is the character. And you'll hear that across any entrepreneur, any business owner. It's really the personality, the character, and the motivating factors. Once I get on an interview with a person that I don't know, I really focus on observing their attitude. It's like number one, their attitude, how they move on camera, how they communicate. And that's essentially it. Then from there, I'll branch to very specific questions as the interview moves along. But there aren't any specific questions that I don't have a script that I go, these are the questions that I need to hit in every single candidate. No, it's more kind of like this podcast where you're asking questions and then it branches out to new things. You see that maybe Brandon's interested in this way. So you take that road and you start asking questions down that road because Brandon is interested and passionate about that topic specifically. So that's the same approach that I take to interviews.
I like that. And you can really feel the passion from somebody if they are truthfully talking about a topic that they like,
Exactly.
right?
You can't fake
Yeah.
it. You can't fake
Yeah,
it.
you really can. You really can. Now, you know what? I'm curious. You guys went from 15 to 70 people in a year. Now, I'm sure during that period, there will be a month or two where you feel rushed to bring on new people onto the team. Have you ever maybe like ignore a red flag on a candidate just for the sake of filling the role?
I don't know that we ever have. I don't, Israel, have we ever ignored red flags?
No, we've had we've had candidates and we go through a handful of candidates before we choose one, and we always do our best to interview each one of them, sometimes twice or three times. And the process that I like to put in place is I don't want to be the only one interviewing a candidate and making a decision because I'm just one person with one perspective. Really, it's about me doing an interview and then depending on where the role lies in the company, I like to invite other team members, non-leadership role team members to come in and interview and meet the person and give me their thoughts. Because at the end of the day, that candidate is going to be working with that team. So I like to have them meet people from that same team that they're going to be joining and getting their perspective because they already know the company. They've already been with us for a while. And when they're interviewing a potential candidate to join their team that they're going to be working with very closely, they have very good judgment, as do I, on whether this candidate fits well in that team's culture. So I like to invite people into the interview process.
I like that. I like that. Now, I'm curious, has anything broke when you went from 10, 15 employees to 70 now? Has there been, I guess, like a tradition that you used to do, but now you're getting to the point where you just cannot simply do it anymore?
Can I take this one really quick?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, before we had 15 employees, we had, I don't know how many clients, a lot less than we have now. I was managing a lot of like the operations, and my systems worked for me, and I could do it. And then we started to scale quickly, and I literally felt like my hair was on fire, and everything broke. And I want to give a big kudos, shout out to Israel and Mike for coming in and fixing that, because I can't tell you how like my systems worked. They worked. They were great for me. I could pull reports. I could show Jordan. He's like, dude, this is amazing. You're killing it. I'm like, yeah, this is no problem. And then we scaled. And then I literally felt like I was in my shell and like so unconfident and like, what was any that I felt worthless because I'm like, I'm not scaling. So I will like, just want to say it's, you have to like step out of your comfort zone. And I was so comfortable in what I had done for 2.5 years and building it, even like protective and like OCD of like, no, we can't change this. This is how it's supposed to be. And that was like to my detriment. So big shout out to my team to, come in and like rebuild these things. So, Israel, if you want to talk about like how, that transition from those broken systems to like fixing them, I think that'd be really cool.
For sure. I think the biggest one that Brandon's thinking about right now are the finances. At the very start, there were certain templates, right? There's certain templates and certain ways of doing things that worked very well for that stage of the company. But I got to the point where we needed to move on to a different way of viewing specific data, financial data, and we moved on to different templates and a deeper layer of detail to understand what types of decisions to make. And that's when we started to very quickly evolve our financial model into what it is today, right? And the financial model now gives us visibility into obviously our MRR, our delivery cost, our overhead, our operating margins, our balance sheet, our our cash flow statements, right? All of that is super important to understand our incremental margins, which is if we're growing revenue, are we also growing our profitability? Because if you're growing revenue and you're also growing your OpEx and your overhead, which shouldn't be the case, your delivery cost should be increasing with revenue slightly, but your margin should be increasing, your profit margin should be increasing at a higher rate, right? Because if you're trying to maintain certain margins in the services that you're delivering, then that's just the case. Now, if the delivery cost is growing at the same rate as your revenue, then you have a problem. Then you're growing the company, but there's no profitability. You're not growing your profit, which is, you take a step back and you're like, wait a minute, then why are we scaling the company? If you're not making more profit. So that was a big transition over. And now the biggest project we're working on now, which is really exciting for me, is sales and marketing, right? So now that we understand and we're tracking very specific metrics on the financial side, our financial health and performance, now we're going into our sales systems, right? Understanding the KPIs of our sales team, our closing rate, our show up rate, and getting really in the weeds of what that looks like and what we need to change, right? Because again, that will inform executive decisions. If you allow for the data to lead you, then there's really no room for ego, right? You're trying to limit the room for your own ego and emotional decision making, and you allow the data to speak for itself. Obviously, there's always going to be a human component and intuition, and that humanity needs to be involved in very specific circumstances because the data It just doesn't, it won't show you that part of running a business. That's just something that you learn as a person to person, right? Because business is a very relational route, essentially, and especially in marketing. You're dealing with people every single day, even with clients. Yeah, I would say financial was a huge lift going from 50 to 70, transforming that and making sure that we're tracking every penny along the way in and out. That was huge. And bringing in the discipline that is necessary to grow a business in a healthy way was a huge lift. And we were successful in doing that. And now delivering a more comprehensive sales and marketing system is going to be the growth engine that will take us from 70 to 150.
Wow.
Can I jump in there too, Wesley? I want to add one more thing.
Yeah, of course.
I'd say one of the biggest transitions too, from being a small agency to a big agency, was the transition from working with people as like contractors, then transitioning to working like employees. And I feel like that's a big shift as far as like how you're tracking things financially, and also like Israel mentioned like profitability too. Like there's like a different relationship with employees versus contractors. Some of your contractors have been with you since like day one, so they feel like employees. But like when you actually go from paying people on like based on the work you do to we're going to pay you this much every month, it puts a lot of pressure on us to deliver, but also like it just evolves the business. And I would say that was one of the things where it's like when you scale quickly, it's like something that's really intimidating.
Yeah, I like that. And you know what? I'll touch base. I actually want to go into that topic in a second. But one thing I actually want to follow up with you is you're very data driven. You're very process driven, and you've been very like just stuck with that, right? But have you had a situation where somebody felt like they were above the process? Like, how do you balance a team member who comes in saying things like, I want to change the process. I want to change the way we do things. And it works out like Israel. And I'm missing there's also a team member who comes in and be like, I'm not going to do this because it's dumb. So how do you balance that sort of thing in your agency?
That's a great point. I would say today we wouldn't bring somebody on that wouldn't get with the program and like follow the processes. There's nothing wrong with trying to evolve and improve the processes. That's great. But I would say when we went from being like a small team to like actually having to adopt processes to scale, that was a hard part. And I'll say this too, is when we were smaller and starting to grow, I had a very hard time getting people to adopt processes and just to follow like SOPs that I was trying to build. And that was like a very like big sticking point on my part, where I realized I can't do this alone. I can't get people to adopt processes. I need to like search for help. And that's like when you have people internally like Israel, where it's like, dude, we want to talk to you about a new role that's going to be great for you. It fits on what your growth trajectory, where you want to go. Let's talk about it. And again, just to sing his praises, he's just been great at like getting the team to adopt stuff and building processes that are repeatable and that scale. So big shout out to you again, Israel.
Yeah. Israel, how strict are you with your process now? What if somebody was like, this is dumb, I don't want to do it?
Yeah, so there's a standard. We discussed this very briefly before, right? There's a standard that I want met. Right? There's a very simple standard that I want met, and those are part of kind of the toolkit that I also want to deliver the account managers so they can retain the client and perform to the best of their ability. Now, what I don't want, it's a delicate balance as well. What I don't want is build a company that's overly bureaucratic, all right? Where it's like constantly just reporting, filling out nonsense reports for leadership, and like doing things that actually don't really move the needle for the client, which at the end of the day, that's what we're here for, right? And improving performance for the client. So that's kind of the balance that I always play out. I set the standard, like this is kind of the basic level of service that we want to provide, and this is how we want to present it. Okay. From there, it's all you. You have your book of clients, you have your portfolio of clients. These are the metrics that I'm going to be tracking, right, to gauge performance. But at the end of the day, like how you do it, how you go about it is really mostly up to you, 90% up to you. I want to empower people, and we're all adults, right? Like I want to hire folks that are going to do, again, a better job than I do. So I don't want to be micromanaging. I can't. I don't have the time and I don't want to. I don't want to be micromanaging folks. I want folks that get it, understand this is the standard level of service. This is how I want it presented. And that's it. From there, you deliver the best performance you can. And there have been some folks that are not necessarily team players, right? There was one candidate that was actually my mentor in the Meta team who was more of a lone wolf, right? And that's okay, but it's not necessarily the team culture that we want to build long term, right? We want to build more of a collaborative, entrepreneurial team culture. The Having a very good, he's the best on the team. He currently is. It broke my heart when we had to kind of rearrange the relationship to something other than what it was, and we just had to kind of rearrange that. And it broke my heart to kind of see him create distance, or see us create distance in that business relationship. But at the end of the day, again, it's about building a team collaborative culture. And yeah, we have gone through those challenges.
Yeah, yeah. How strict are you with that? So if you let's say you have somebody coming into your interview and you notice that, let's say, they have all the criteria you're looking for, from the skill set to the right people, but you sort of notice they have that lone wolf personality that you mentioned. Is that a non-negotiable thing for you?
Not necessarily, because at the end of the day, I'm looking for best talent. I want to attract the best talent. So if I observe certain aspects of their delivery, right, or the way they go about strategy and delivering for the client, then I will address it, right? Because now it's not so much their personality. Now it's actually, a risk on the delivery of the service itself and how they approach their work, right? I'll give you an example, right? There can be one account manager, for example, that's amazing in the account, putting together campaign structures and optimizing, but their communication style with the client isn't very consistent, right? And it's just the weekly reports, and that's it. There's no really other touch point there. So that's a cue for me to jump in and be like, hey, listen, I need you to communicate a little bit more with the client, right? This isn't, we just don't send weekly reports and that's it, right? You have to jump in a little bit more and communicate. We all work online. That's the most important thing that we need to do, is communicate effectively, because we're not in person. So that's an example there. And so, yeah, there are opportunities for me to jump in and kind of correct this lone wolf behavior. But at the end of the day, if the person have another account manager, we call him a meta growth partner, and he's amazing. He communicates in extreme detail what's going on in the account, the different problems that they're facing in the account, and the solutions, next steps in the account on several times throughout the week, right? But I don't have to think about them. I don't have to worry about them. He just follows the standard process of onboarding a client and how to welcome the client into the Slack channel. And then from there, he performs, right? Like, I don't have to manage him at all. And those are the type of people that I want to have on my team.
So how do you correct other people's behavior? So you talk about communication, that's client communication, but how would you, correct the personality?
Yeah, so that's a very difficult thing to do. You cannot correct for their personality. You either accept them for who they are, or you let them go, right? And you find someone else that fits what you're looking for and a better way. So that's just a simple answer there, man. You can't correct, you can't change. Simple.
If they want to grow, they can grow. You create opportunities, but if they don't want to, you just can't.
Exactly. Right? They'll show you. They'll show you if they're receptive to feedback or not. right? The person that's receptive to feedback, a very easy tell is they start asking you questions, right? If someone's receptive to feedback and they do want to change or they're open to changing their personality and their behavior, they'll begin asking you, okay, well, what do you think about this? Like, how do you think I did here? How did I perform here? Right? They'll start asking for you to evaluate them at a frequent basis. And that's someone that's more receptive to growth. Someone that just like nods their head and is fine and it's like, yeah, okay, I'll work on it. They're not going to work on it. They're not going to change. Nothing's going to change.
Brandon, so you earlier you mentioned that you brought your team from in the earlier state of the agency, it was just contractors, and now you transitioning, if I understand correctly, most, if not all, everybody's a full time. What made you decide on that? Like, was there any event that triggered that decision?
There's two events, two perspectives really. Number one is stability for team members. As you run an agency, if you're doing a really good job, you minimize your churns, but people still churn. So if you're paying like a contractor on a per account basis and you lose a couple accounts, well, then they just took a significant hit to their income. And so some people are fine with that. Other people value like a consistent income. So what we did is we transitioned that to give people more consistent income, more predictability, but also just to scale the agency, right? Like Israel had mentioned, like, getting really hard details in our finances, understanding everything and tracking even the smallest things. In order to scale a business and bring more quality clients on, you have to have teams on like a salary. So you have extra money to double down and reinvest in marketing so you can bring better clients on. And that's great because, it's great for the team members too, right? Because if we can spend more on marketing, do a better job with sales, we can bring on better clients, which makes their life easier. So it's like this kind of process of just like, evolving and adapting better processes for businesses and just becoming more profitable, but while also like taking care of our team members. So that's kind of like the philosophy behind it.
Yeah. So how do you create job security for your team? So most, I believe you, most agencies operate that way, right? They hire people, and when the job goes away, they fire a bunch of people. But how do you build that safety net while keeping the company healthy?
Yeah, well, it comes down to making sure that we have enough qualified prospects coming in on a month-over-month basis to where we can sign quality clients. Because inevitably, some clients do churn. We want to replace those and make sure we're able to sustain that growth or sustain our clientele level, so that our team members, we don't have to let people go, and we don't like. I don't think we've let anybody go in the past like year and a half because we don't have enough clients. Like even if we've had people churn or have had clients churn, we don't let people go. We stick to it. We would rather be less profitable, guarantee that they have a job and be able to provide for themselves, and also like just have that security. That's why like we transition that. Yeah, man, we've been very fortunate. And it just comes down to like us knowing what we're doing as far as marketing goes and just for ourselves, right? To get people in the door. So yeah.
Yeah. Israel, from the operational perspective, do you have anything to add on to that? How to build that safety net for your team?
Yeah. So the best safety net to build for a team is one where you give them the opportunity to perform well for their clients in that perspective, right? And you give them the support that they need with, again, knowledge, tools, and collaborative support across the team, where it's very unlikely for them to fail alone, right? So if they don't really have the space to fail alone, and you're in a more of a community team collaborative environment, then from my perspective, you're supported, right? You have everything you need to perform well. Now, if you still don't, then that's another conversation, right? But as Brandon said, we haven't let anyone go because they didn't have the resources or the support that they needed. I have let account managers go because they do not integrate with team. They don't integrate well. They don't communicate well. They don't reach out when they need help. They don't ask questions. And slowly but surely, obviously, they fall to the wayside and they're unable to perform well. So someone that can't integrate well with the team, unfortunately, just won't do.
Yeah, actually, that's a very interesting point. What are some of the red flags that you can spot when somebody just doesn't feel like they want to be a part of the team anymore?
That's a good question. I haven't seen anyone that explicitly doesn't want to be part of the team anymore. That's a lie. There is one person. So they would just silently quit. They would just silently quit, right? They would silently withdraw from the team, and then eventually they start. You start seeing kind of a slowdown in communications, and you're like, okay, what's going on here? Something, behavior has changed. Let me hop on a call with this person and see what's going on. And then effectively, of course, they're like, yeah. If you start speaking to people as people, of course, and not speaking to the role, then you get real answers. Because again, we're all human beings. We're not just, bobbleheads on a screen. We're real people. We have real lives, real feelings, real aspirations. So when you start talking to people, you're like, hey, I've been seeing this. What's going on? Is everything okay? People will be honest because they want to be honest. Most people want to be honest when it comes to things that they're unhappy about. And if you position yourself as a true leader with the best interests of that person, then people will be more comfortable in opening up to you, right? And that's the type of leader that I personally want to be. That's the leader that I know Brandon is. So and again, that doesn't mean like if that person is unhappy here and they want to transition to another role or they want to transition to another company, I'm happy to assist them. I've done it. I've been like, okay, send me your resume. I'm going to share it with the recruiting agencies that we work with. My experience working with you hasn't been terrible. And I understand why you're feeling this way. As long as I understand the underlying reasons why, you're pulling back and you're no longer interested in the role, and you're honest about your aspirations and where you want to go, I'm here to support you, man. I've been there. I've been there too. So we're always happy to support that person's journey along the way. And I'm hoping that type of attitude from our part attracts really amazing folks to come work for CarbonBox Media.
That's awesome. Out of curiosity, do you guys still have offshore team member, or is the team mainly in the US and in-house, or in office now?
We're global, man.
We're completely global, yeah. Completely remote. US, a lot in Europe. We have a couple in South America, some in South Africa. It's all over, man. Mike, our CEO, is based in Dubai, so it's everywhere. We have a couple US. We have like 3 or 4 US folks as well. So yeah, we're all over. It's a great team.
So how do you manage that culture environment? Like, how do you make sure that somebody else is in the other side of the world, like they are hitting their target, they are doing everything the best that they can. Like how do you manage that productivity from the other side of the world?
Yeah, I mean, I would go back to data, right? Making sure that we're tracking data effectively at the end of the day and having touch points with the team. We have our weekly team meetings, just like any other marketing company. But I think what we do differently is we empower folks. We communicate, look, these are the benchmarks that we want to meet. These are the KPIs that I want to see improved month over month. Do it, right? Just do it. What do you need? Do you need motion? Do you need foreplay? Do you need some other staff? Do you need to be part of a community of marketers? That's one of the best communities in the world. Let me get you a membership. All right. Let me get you the tools that you need so that you can meet the benchmarks and there are no excuses. And I'll let you do your thing. Give you the space that you need. But these are the things that I want, that I'm looking at, and I'm very transparent about that, so that you know what is a successful portfolio.
Yeah, I'm curious because you have team member around the world. Have you seen people start to build cliques based on their country. Maybe they perhaps speak their own language. They feel more comfortable talking to one another in their own native language, and they just have that click going on. And if you do, how would you encourage everybody to come together and be a part of the same team?
You want to take that one, Brandon?
Sure, I'll take it. Yeah. I would say, number one, if they're clicking up, I think in every circumstance, you have one or two best friends you want to hang out with no matter what. I think clicking up, as long as it's done in a positive way, is totally fine with me. We have a team of we have 2 or 3 guys from Greece on the team. They're naturally clicked up, hanging out, spend time together. That's great. I love that. But I've seen them connect really well with other team members from different places as well. So I think as long as you just have genuinely good people, these clicks are not a problem, in my opinion.
I love that. Israel, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think obviously it's natural for different cultures and communities to come together and work together and succeed together. That's totally fine. You see that across America everywhere, right? I think that's what makes America such a great and beautiful kind of community and country, is that different communities can build lives there and stick together. So similar to CarbonBox Media, there are folks. We have 2 or 3 folks from Brazil. We have, like Brandon said, 3 folks from Greece. We have a handful of folks from Macedonia. And when they work together, they don't speak English. They speak Macedonian. And if that's going to help them work more, better, if that's going to help them work better and more consistently and deliver, then that's fine with me. That's cool. I don't mind it at all. Now, where it becomes a problem is when collaboration, cross-cultural collaboration kind of tanks. That's where things kind of need to change a little bit, right? But that's never, at least in my experience, that has never been the case.
Well, unfortunately, we are getting into the end, so I would love to have you both one last question before we end the podcast. Maybe different for both of you, but for Brandon, if you had to restart the agency today and build the entire thing from scratch, what is the one mistake that you would refuse to repeat? And same thing for you, Israel. If you have to come in and build the entire operation again from 15 to 70 people now, what is the one mistake that you would not do again?
I would say I would be way harder on the beginning of processes, because I think when you're small, it's really easy to just be you're working with 3 or 4 people. You can just talk through things, and there's a lot of talking that happens. And so you get all that information through just communicating. But as you scale, you have to then build those processes, and then you're building them after the fact. So it's a little more challenging to, number one, get the people that were already on the team to adopt that. But also, if you haven't already tested those and broken them when you're smaller, they're more challenging to implement then. So I would say if I had to restart, that's the one thing I'd focus on. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that's a good one, Brandon. I would also say financial discipline. And this is kind of baked into my personality from a very young age as well. I've always liked the money numbers, and so in any business I would start with high financial discipline and be very careful and knowledgeable about and being aware of every dollar in and grow from there. Because when you're growing a company, you're delivering an amazing service and there's a lot of demand for your service or product, it can get away from you very quickly. And I've seen this happen over and over again. And even when raising capital from investors, you have $2 million, $5 million in the bank, all of a sudden, you feel like you're rich, but you're pre-revenue. You start making these investments and you start spending money here and there with no really clear ROI or reason. So mostly, I'd say financial discipline is number one on my list from the very beginning, is building those foundations to make sure you're tracking money in, money out.
Well, everyone, this is your guest, Brandon and Israel, and this is the Agency Culture Conversations. Thank you guys for being on the show.
Thank you so
Happy to
much,
do it, man.
Leslie.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for inviting us.